least. Okay, so how do we want to open this show?
I have no idea. Actually, all right, here's a good question.
Okay.
Where or how did your love of like reading and books come from? Where did that come from? Like, what was the thing that sparked it?
Jeez.
It's a good question, right?
Right.
And it's one of those things like a lot of people don't really contemplate that question. Like when you fall into nerddom, where's the thing that kind of like, what was that rock in the road that tripped you? Whoop.
I want to say, like, I have distinct memories of the Phantom Tollbooth, the Indian in the Cupboard. I have memories
like
of
the actual books or those movies that
books.
Okay.
I never watched the movies, so those I have like, and I've found an Indian in the Cupboard copy somewhere. I finally found it, and it's in my library at home somewhere. And like, I never read any of those like the junior or the young kid kind of 70s and 80s. I like Louis Sacker. I remember reading him a lot.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Ramona Quimby, Beverly Cleary. But I have distinct memories of reading the Phantom Tollbooth, and I can't give you like, oh, this moment, but I remember reading the Phantom Tollbooth and just being in amazement at how and what I was seeing in my mind as the story was read, as I was reading the story. So that was me. The C.S. Lewis series, of course, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was a huge part of my childhood. I didn't start reading J.R. Tolkien until later in life, so I wasn't an early adopter of the J.R. Tolkien stuff. But I would read a lot of that's like the Louis Sacker. I read Goosebumps was actually something that when I was younger I would read sometimes.
Those books are actually great.
But I have very good memories of my elementary. Like, I loved to read, and in middle school I really started to read a lot more, and I got to the point where I could read Jurassic Park in a day and a half. I read very quickly, and I love reading. I love that feeling of being lost in the world. Oh, yeah. But I think it started at a young age, and I think my parents definitely were a big part of that. They're like, no, you're going to read. Like, you need to check out books. I have memories of going to the library and checking out books every so often and taking them back, and just that joy of bringing home something new to read and something exciting. And then it, of course, I became interested in Star Trek stories and Star Wars stories and fantasy stories, and then your whole world opens up because now you're aware of so much more in the world. What about you?
Me? It's weird. Mine kind of started as like a side hustle to education in class.
Okay.
Like when we covered like myths and legends, and Zeus and Hercules, that kind of got me started rolling into it, and I got really, really interested in it.
Okay.
And I remember watching Rankin Bass's old like The Hobbit.
Okay.
And Return of the King and stuff.
The old school cartoon.
Yeah, the old school. Like, everybody go check those out. Some of you, the older folks, you'll know.
Yeah.
Well, you should know.
Yeah.
But the younger kids, you definitely won't. But the animation is kind of weird looking,
a little wonky.
Interesting. But like the story and production they went into these things is fantastic for the time. It's crazy. But like those got me interested in it. My dad is the one that bought me my first box set of C.S. Lewis's The Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe. Had all the books in there. But I think it was because I was interested in Tolkien, but he didn't think I was ready to handle it.
Okay. So he started you out with C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, and I devoured that box set like so fast. He was kind of like, okay, let's go back to Walden Books, because that was our bookstore at the time. It was closest to us.
R.I.P. Walden Books. It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I don't think it does.
Nope.
Right?
Gone the way of B. Dalton and all the other places.
Yeah, that was a good spot.
Oh, remember those days.
Yeah, and like none of the crazy merchandise that you see in a bookstore now. It was just books.
Books on books on books.
And it was great. And then like we went back, and then he got me The Hobbit.
Yeah.
I devoured The Hobbit super fast.
Yeah.
He didn't think Lord of the Rings was for me either.
Yeah.
I think he fed those to my brother first,
Right.
who was only a year and a half older.
Yeah.
And so my brother got those, but then I was getting into like Forgotten Realms and Dragonlance and all that kind of, I went into a deep fantasy, like deep dive as a kid, and like that's what I would read everywhere.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where mine sparked off, is because like I got interested in it in school because of mythology.
Yeah.
And that's like still big love. I love mythology.
Yeah.
Greco-Roman, and then also, Norse mythology, all that kind of stuff. It's great. Like Egyptian mythology.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff is amazing. So it's kind of like that, that's what kind of got me in there.
Yeah.
And then my dad just poured gasoline on the fire. But like, here's his box set. See what's up with it. See how you do with that. And so that was the C.S. Lewis books, and I still have that box set. It is old, ancient.
Yeah.
I'm surprised if I touch it and like crumble and fall apart. But it's still sitting there. I have that book set, and it's like, I remember that. It's like, there we go. That was the thing that kind of like, there was the little baby fire, but then he just kind of like, here's a bonfire. Boom.
Yeah. Reading has that power. It has that power to ignite our brains and set us on fire. When we return after the intro, we're talking comics, and you won't see this. I might put a picture on Twitter, but I have a stack of comic books and graphic novels in front of me that I have pulled off my shelf here in my classroom. James has a list of his notes, and we're gonna kind of talk through some graphic novels and comic book life.
This one's gonna be kind of free form, folks.
Yeah.
We don't really have too much structure here because I think it's a just good break after our Ghostbusters where we did a bunch of research and stuff. Let's just decompress, breathe a little bit.
So when the music starts to play, grab your cup of tea, grab a scone, grab a biscuit, and pour that Earl Grey with 2 sugars and a milk, and we'll be right back here on Nerds by Screenlight.
Get nerdy with me. Talk nerdy to me. Get nerdy with me. All I really need for you to do is just please.
I can sell.
Talk to me. Talk nerdy to me.
All right, and we're back. Once more, my friends, welcome to Nerds by Screenlight. My name is Aaron.
And I'm James.
And today it's Comics Day. Now, fair confession, I am not a regular comic book reader. I am a classic. The pile I have here that I'm going to walk through and talk about is mostly classic stuff with a little bit of probably some newer stuff, but nothing like we don't have a local comic book shop here in Fort Morgan.
Yeah, sadly.
It's not a thing that exists. I'd have to probably go down to Brighton or Denver to get me some comics. But I don't have the.
You don't think Greeley has one?
Probably, yeah.
We'd have to dig for it.
That might be something to do. Like take a like a handheld voice recorder and do like a road trip podcast that we would just kind of talk about. And we go into a comic shop and say, "Hey, we're recording a podcast. We'd like to just shoot the breeze in your shop," and we'll see if they throw us out.
I mean, we'd have to maybe enter in first and ask, "Hey, this is what we're gonna do. Are you interested?"
Now let's just kick down the doors and be like, "We're here for a podcast, baby. Let's do this." Police get called. It's gonna be a fun time for everybody. So I come from a world, and then I'll let James talk about where he overall comes from. I come from a world of Batman and Superman and Spider-Man and X-Men. When I was a kid...
Well, who was your main? Were you DC or Marvel?
It's weird because I love the Marvel films, and I don't love the DC. I don't love what DC's done, filmmaking-wise. Comics-wise, I say this because I haven't explored the Marvel comic world as much as I've hewed more closely to the DC. So in sitting in front of us right now, I have a stack of maybe 15 comic books and graphic novel collections, and most of them are going to be Batman and Superman, and some DC other stuff. But there's also some stuff that's just a little bit different. I've got a graphic novel or two here for my language arts side of things. But I am not. It's weird. Like, you would think that I would have probably been a Marvel guy, but I grew a fair definition. So I grew up in the time when it was the first Batman the Animated Series on Fox.
Oh, okay.
The original, not the various remakes they've made over the years.
Yeah.
The original with Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill as the voice of the Joker.
Yeah, see, that's when I pictured those animated characters talking, that's who I imagine in my brain.
Well, and here's the thing about Batman the Animated Series. Batman the Animated Series, and I don't know if you can Google it now, but this was a couple years ago. Every show has a Bible. And not really a Bible like a holy scripture, but every show has a Bible that literally governs everything that characters and the world and the universe can do.
Yeah.
And so the writers who write the various episodes are given a copy of the Bible, and they say, okay, these are the rules of the universe you're writing in. You can't break these rules.
Well, it was this, like, I remember the animated series is mostly controlled by, was it Bruce Timm is the name of the guy who did it?
Couldn't tell you. You might know more
because
than
they
me.
Call it the Timmyverse.
Yeah.
And so it's like he was the one that kind of oversaw a bunch of that himself because he loved the content already.
Well, and it is a true Batman show because Batman and Bruce Wayne are true to their characters that you've seen in comics. And it was modeled after the Batman movies with good Lord.
Michael Keaton?
Here we go. I was going to say Michael Caine. I'm like, nope, he was in the other Batman movies. He was Alfred. Yeah. But it was modeled after that. The music, oh my gosh, the theme song to Batman the Animated Series, I hear that today, and I just have flashbacks to middle school because I loved watching that show.
I can sit here and I can still picture that opening sequence.
And
then him standing there with the lightning flashing behind him and stuff. Yeah.
And it's the intro. If you're out there and you're listening, you need to put pause. You need to push pause and go click over to a new tab and open up YouTube and go Batman the Animated Series intro. It is the most, I would almost say it's a love letter to the Batman mythology.
Yeah.
That intro is just pitch perfect. And the music and how it was written is it's not a ripoff, but it is an adaptation of the Batman world. And I love that show.
Yeah, because they played with the villains a bunch.
Yes.
And I think they did a better job of the villains in there.
Yeah.
Especially Mr. Freeze, for example.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. No, it is an exceptional telling of the Batman story. There is a lot of just great stuff in there. So I come from that world. And also later there was the Superman. And then there was Batman and Superman Adventures where they were together and they were working together and doing things.
That was some good stuff.
And I remember but here's the thing about the show at that time and the shows is they were so focused on making sure that the rules of these characters were followed.
Oh, yeah.
That there was a definite difference between how Batman operated and how Superman operated. And so...
Well, that's as it should be, too.
Right. Exactly. So I grew up with that, but I also grew up with X-Men. And the X-Men animated series on Fox when I was young, and the Spider-Man series, the original, and just how cool. And again, so we're crossing into Marvel, but those shows never made me want to go and buy comics.
Yeah.
Wasn't like, oh, I want to go do that. I was more like, I do want to read Batman comics. I do want to research that. I do, because I love Batman, and I love the hero he is. And I love what he stands for, and just his story is so layered. As a language arts teacher, I love it. So a lot of my collection that I'm going to walk through and talk about is very Superman and Batman heavy. So that's kind of me as an overarching kind of picture of what you're going to get as we talk through the rest of the show. For you, where do you come from?
Man, my story, my turn in the comic books started just me being curious about these rags that were in the local grocery store, which was an Acme Clicks at the time in Akron, Ohio. Hey, Akron, Ohio. But yeah, it was just a little store, and you had like that little the spinning thing where they'd put the old comic books in at the grocery stores and stuff, little metal rack.
Oh yeah, no, I remember that.
Yeah, so it's like that's where I found them, and I really wasn't sure who was what or whatever because I was just too young to really be into it or aware of what was going on with stuff. And I remember just picking up random ones and just kind of reading and looking through them. And my mom was grocery shopping or whatever. So that's kind of got me, and I started into Marvel stuff really first because their covers and stuff were greater. And then Spider-Man was kind of Spider-Man, folks. He's everywhere.
Right.
So it's and he's just a good superhero to follow too. He has really good story arcs in there. But yeah, I was like, that's how I got it. And I started more into a Marvel person, and I really I didn't really pay much attention to DC until Superman the movie.
Oh yeah. And which one though? Which the Superman Returns?
Donner, the very first
one. Oh, okay.
one.
The original and the only real Superman movies that we talk about.
Yes, that one is I guess our younger viewers would go watch that and be like, ugh, God, this is terrible to look at and all that kind of stuff. But it's honestly,
it's better.
For the time, it was amazing. Yeah. They let him pour so much love and attention into that movie and get away with some very expensive effects for the time.
Yeah.
To make this movie possible. And that kind of that's what woke me up to DC, what's out there? Yeah. And then I started opening up and getting into that kind of stuff when I was younger. But I always had issues. It was because that was my hook versus a comic book store, grocery stores aren't great at keeping books in order.
Right.
And you can't really pay attention to stuff.
They're not really curated.
Yeah, that's not really curated. They just kind of get them and they kind of sling them out there, and you're lucky if you get, back-to-back issues.
Yeah.
So sometimes I was paying attention to storylines that are just really super fragmented. And couldn't really keep them together.
Yeah.
It's probably why I'm a big fan of these big trade paperbacks and omnibuses you can buy now. There's here's the story from A to B, and you get everything in there, and it's perfect.
Yeah.
And then later on, we've actually moved, and then I got a local comic book store. There's just a couple streets away.
Okay.
And then I started reading stuff more stably, and I kind of spread out amongst them all, kind of was into different things, even Green Lantern at a time. Huh. But probably my main love out of all of them at that time when I was younger was still growing up was the X-Men.
Oh, okay.
And I fell into the Chris Claremont run of the X-Men hardcore because that was the good stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'll talk about it later, but let's just say it's like they gave the X-Men over this guy because they were kind of floundering.
Yeah.
And he exploded the X-Men into what you get today.
Really?
Like the animated series when that came out, I'm like, that's Chris's run.
Oh, okay.
That's
that makes
his
sense.
stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I understood the storyline. It's like, yes. It's like, this is his design, the things where he did with his characters, the designs and things like that. It's like, this is him animated.
Yeah.
This is sweet.
That's cool for me to know because I watched it and I was like, this is incredible art style. This is incredible storytelling. Like Gambit had personality.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing. He was the one that fleshed out the villains, the opposing forces.
Well, and like the Sentinels were so terrifying.
Oh yeah,
and they were so big and so massive, and like it felt like a real threat to the X-Men. And I never really like looked into how who wrote it and who made that show what it was, but it makes sense that it came from a reboot, refreshing, reimagining, rebreathing of the X-Men universe.
Yeah.
That's
so it's
incredible.
like that's kind of like all that stuff, like those X-Men that we know today with their fleshed out stuff, and their villain Magneto, who's like super fleshed out.
Yeah,
this was that man.
Yeah,
he kind of filled all that. He filled in backstory. He had the characters, develop more than just being like cookie cutter superheroes. Suddenly you had Cyclops and Jean Grey having a depth in marriage and struggles and getting through it together.
And then she turned into Phoenix,
and then she dies and all this kind of stuff. That was all that guy.
Interesting.
And so that was like those storylines were just amazing.
Yeah.
So that was like kind of like I just started reading those week to week.
The theme song for that. And like so I teach at an alternative high school here in Fort Morgan, and one of my students, whenever like some cool music is playing or like some really like sound like a track is playing, he's like, "Man, that really slaps." So that intro music for X-Men. Well, let me see. I think we can probably play it and not get in trouble.
Well, I mean, I know at least you can do like 10-second snippet, so you can probably do that at least.
I think it's not going to be a terribly. It's not going to be X-Men animated series intro. Yeah, so it is. Oh my gosh. Oh, all right. Buckle up. Here we go. Let's see if we can do this. All right. So it is. We'll probably get an ad.
He's shoving his mic towards a laptop, folks. This is our deep technical.
We know how to do things here. I gotta put on that speaker and then I gotta skip the ad because good grief. But yeah, I have memories of this. All right, you ready? Here we go.
Previously on X-Men.
Yes.
Oh, it gets better. It's so. And so as it's playing, and again, you can just go look at X-Men opening theme animated series.
Yes.
And so the characters appear and their name is like, so it's Jean Grey, Professor X, and so it's just this brilliant, like, I miss the days of actual television theme songs, theme songs. There we go, got it. Because like between Batman and X-Men and Spider-Man and all, like they were crafted like for the joy of this is the show.
Well, remember, like when you were a kid, and you heard that pop on your TV.
Oh yeah, you knew
it was time to go.
It was game time.
Yeah.
And I to this day when I listen, I'll once in a while, like every week, like once a week or so, I'll go and listen to some old theme songs from my animated series childhood, and it's just like I just sit there and it's like a warm blanket of comfort, flashing back to those days of Saturday morning cartoons and just loving to watch. And I'm sure it was commercialized, and I'm sure it was trying to sell me game like figures.
All
and
those
things.
commercials were for the toys, sir.
Yeah, I freely admit that. But it's also like it's kind of cool to think about. Like I grew up in what I will call the golden age of cartoon animation.
Yeah.
In this day and after that, after the Batman animated series and all that, they tried to reinvent. They tried to repackage the Batman series, and it with varying levels of success and not so much success. I still will cling very much hard to the Batman the Animated Series original run, the Mask of the Phantasm, the special they did. They did a Joker episode, a Joker mini movie, and like that universe, that bookend and end of that show is brilliant. But what we're here to talk about, which we've kind of gone the long way around talking about.
I mean, it's fine. This is what this episode is, right?
Yeah,
we didn't really plan this out.
We didn't really. Yeah. We didn't sketch anything, but that's where I come from, and so what I'm going to talk about on my comic book pile here I've got, for the most part, is going to reflect what I feel like. And again, what's interesting. So I attended Littleton High School. That's my high school at. So Littleton High School sits in the middle of Littleton. On Littleton Boulevard. There's car dealerships, there's apartments, there's the main street, and then there's it's not a residential area by any stretch of the imagination.
Okay.
So there's a shopping center across the way, had a King Soopers, whatever, it had Starbucks, things. And I remember this, at one point in that shopping center for a while until it closed, until the store that I'm talking about closed, there was a Mile High Comics store in that shopping center.
Nice.
I never went in there.
What?
Because I, at that time, was not interested in comic books. I was reading.
That's a fair.
I was reading novels. But I think back to that time, and again, this is when you play, you play kind of that. Well, what would have happened if I had done that? If I had actually walked in there and spent some money on some comics and started collecting and maybe I would have had more of an awareness of that. And so to you out there in the world, if you're listening to this or if you've made it this far and you're like, man, this is boring, I don't want to listen to my comics. Here's the deal. Give it a try. Find a comic book store, go online, just order yourself one. Don't order yourself a whole collection. Don't go crazy. But look and see what...
The thing is, the advice is, going online and all that kind of stuff, look for what people recommend. Go to your local comic book store. Ask them what they recommend. They will be able to give you
like a starter package. Like what's a good starting comic to kind of get myself into it?
The real workers there, or even the people that are standing in that comic book store, can give you good suggestions to get you started on anything.
And Mile High Comics still exists. There's only, I think, just the main location in downtown Denver.
Well, the other thing too is also support your local comic book store, because
there aren't many left out there.
There's not many out there, and you need to buy from them to keep them alive.
Yeah. So I never did go into that store. However, I spent a year and a half in the Philippines back in 06, 07, I think it was, 2006, 2007. And I would wander around the Metro Manila and Quezon City, and I would find stores to shop and spend money because I had some money to spend. Well, I discovered at a shop, I can't remember what it was called. Actually, I could tell you if I look at the back of this. Nope.
You think they have a label on one of these?
No, they do. They all do. They all had labels. They all had stickers from the shops. Anyway, so it was a Meralco or some such nonsense. Anyway, so I could buy and what I'm talking about is I'm talking about the collection. So when you buy a comic book, you get a 15-page, 20-page, 30-page, whatever, little piece of thing or whatever. What I bought the entire collection. So at the top of my list, at the top of my pile here, is the best-selling graphic novel of all time, The Death of Superman.
Yep.
And it is from start to finish the entire Death of Superman, which covered several issues when it was originally released back in the day. But this is the one that I think it was one of my first pickups when I went there. What I love about The Death of Superman,
this was a massive comics event.
It was
on the news. It made Good Morning America.
Yeah, it was massive because it was the Death of Superman. No one had, they hadn't tried to kill him off. It was a massive thing. And so what happens in this book, when they call it a graphic novel, it actually, I would say it qualifies as a graphic novel, is Doomsday shows up. And Doomsday rips through all the members of Justice League, of the Junior League. Everyone gets beat up. Even Supergirl gets slammed into
Man, that Blue Beetle with that car door.
Yeah, it's intense. And the way that it's drawn is you're going to probably look at it and you go, oh man, this is a certain art style. But the way, and this is the language arts teacher speaking, right?
Yeah.
The way that the colors are done and the drawings are framed and how the flow goes, it is absolutely mind-boggling what they do here and how they show you, but they don't tell you. And so you get the sense of Superman as he continues to try and fight Doomsday, and he continues to lose, and all the other heroes are getting destroyed, and they're not able to stand up against him, and Superman's struggling, and it is a page turner. Like I've picked this book up so many times in the last couple of months, and I've just started reading, and I can't stop. Like I want to keep remembering how it goes and what happens, because it exposes Superman's weakness. It exposes that he's not the superhuman we thought he was, that he is not going to be able to save us all, that he eventually can die. And the last shot where him and Doomsday are going toe to toe is in the front of, I think, the Daily Planet building. And as they realize that he's dying and that he's dead, you
can see it.
You remember.
Yeah.
So, and I remember reading this and just.
Yeah, like Lois is holding him.
Yeah.
And like everybody, all the other superheroes, everybody that's there
is in tears and is just in shock. And it's a hard, they definitely went for the emotional impact. And Superman was truth, justice, and the American way.
Yep. He's
been a part of our lives since the 40s and the 50s.
30s.
The 30s.
1938.
And so this character was to take the incredible thing that they did to kill him, was not lightly considered. And there's a lot of, I think they write in one of the editions that I have, I don't think it's this one, there's an actual addendum at the end about what this meant and how they went through this decision. But because you can't keep a good man down,
they bring him back.
But
they've done this with every superhero.
Yeah. But they did this in a way where the Return of Superman, and it's not just one Superman that comes back. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them.
Yeah.
And they're all different personalities. And the collection, the Return of Superman is far thicker than the Death of Superman book. But it's really fun because we get to see the different personalities. We get to see people without Superman and what happens in Metropolis without Superman. And I love it because we get him back in the end. But we also get Superboy, who says, "I'm not Superboy, I'm Superman." And then you get Hank Henshaw, who him and Superman have a history.
Yep.
And it comes full circle in the end.
What was his name? I know he wore the metal suit, but I can never remember his name.
John Henry.
Yeah, John Henry.
John Henry was just a cool story too. And John Henry's story, Man of Steel is what he's called, and I think, didn't Shaq play him in a movie at some point? Maybe that's the Mandela effect. Maybe I'm making up a movie.
Yeah, maybe making up a movie, because I don't think he did.
I don't know. Maybe I'm imagining.
Yeah.
I don't know. And so there's a lot of interesting stuff in here. So I love to read The Death and then The Return of Superman as a twofer together, because it definitely gets me going and goes, okay, here's my despondency, but then I get to read through and discover he comes back. And there's a lot of kind of half takes and swerves along the way to get to the point where the real Superman lives. And there's a lot of question about identity. There's a lot of conversation about who is Superman. What is a true hero in this story? Because all the other,
Because all the other supermen we get, you could say,
they're flawed.
They're heinously flawed. Versus compared to him. So when people start drawing those comparisons, it's just kind of like, you fall short. You're not the symbol we need. Yeah. You're trying. Right. And we appreciate that.
You're trying so hard.
But you're not him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like they trample that topic over in a lot of one shots and what ifs and stuff. You want to hold on to those books
for a second? Yeah, so I'm gonna let James talk about his stuff, but before he does, I want to mention that we will come back to this conversation. Yeah. In what I love is Batman Nightfall. It is where Bruce Wayne.
Well, this is spine broken, right?
Yeah, by Bane. And so I think it mirrors the Superman death, and then somebody takes over. And this is only Batman Nightfall Volume 1. I need to find the rest of this collection because...
Yeah, I know there's several, right?
Yes, it's a long series because Batman has to come back. Anyway, so we'll talk about that here in a second, but let's switch over to James.
Yeah, see, for me, it's those trade paperback kind of things. Purchasing those is still a recent thing for me.
Yeah.
I started getting back into them. Thank you, Myth Adventures, my local comic book store that was in Texas. Mm-hmm. You guys, Mike and Carl, you kind of got me into, started reading all kinds of different stuff. They became my friends. So,
So where does your list start? What is your, if you were to choose something to kind of just expand on, what's a book, what's a series that really, like, for me, it will always be the death of Superman. Like,
Death
that
of
will,
Superman?
number one, top of the list. I will come back to that every single day
Like,
of my
what's
life.
the one that I love? Like, I can go back and read it all the time, whatever.
Yeah, it never gets old.
There's two.
Okay.
Kingdom Come,
Okay.
and the other one is All-Star Superman. All-Star Superman. Then I can speak.
Okay. What's the first one? Kingdom Come. What's that about?
Kingdom Come. Kingdom Come actually takes place, and it's kind of like a critique of the 90s comics, right?
Okay.
But it is a story of what happens if Superman just quits.
Really? Okay.
So what happens, like, in the start of this comic book? I'm gonna say a little bit of it, but it's not too much of a spoiler, really.
Well, it's probably been out for a couple of years.
Yeah, it has been out for a while.
So you can spoil it.
yeah,
It's not going to
so-
be, woo.
Well, I mean, I want people to go out and
That's
read
true,
this.
that's true.
I want
I
you to
will
go
give
pick
that.
this up and read it
Yeah.
because there is a lot of good stuff that goes into it, and it calls back to a lot of themes that take place in comic books
Okay.
and just superhero stories, period.
Yeah.
So what happens is in the beginning of this comic book, the Joker kind of kills a bunch of people in the Daily Planet
Okay.
with his Joker gas,
Right.
whatever. And he's laughing about it, and Superman goes to stop him
Uh-huh.
and usually doing his Superman thing.
Yeah.
Superman doesn't capture anybody.
Yeah.
He doesn't kill anybody. He
Right.
captures them and hands them off for justice.
Yeah.
Instead, you have another superhero called Magog who appears
Huh.
in that same thing, and he just straight up kills the Joker. Boom. And people cheer Magog. The world cheers Magog for this action of getting that vengeance. Not justice, but vengeance. And they turn their back on Superman and
Okay.
his ideal.
And they want Magog instead.
And they want Magog.
Okay.
And like there's like a good splash, kind of like comics montage kind of thing that happens where it shows like how the world and their opinions all just turns on Superman, and they don't want him involved anymore, and they push him out.
Oof.
And so Superman just quits.
Really?
He's like, they don't want me anymore. They don't want my ideals anymore. The world doesn't care about me anymore.
Interesting.
I'm turning it in.
Wow.
And he just kind of like disappeared.
Huh.
And so everything falls apart
Oh, boy.
because Justice League, the
Yeah.
driving thing behind the Justice League is usually Superman.
Yeah.
Superman is there like holding
Yeah.
all that together. It's like,
Yeah.
this is what we need to stand for, folks. This
Yeah.
is what we need to do.
Yeah.
All that goes apart.
Oh, jeez.
All the different heroes go all their different ways because no one's there to hold it all together again. And then you have Magog and his crew. Like, there's a whole bunch of other kind of like super beings and stuff that join him and just start killing bad guys
Oh, jeez.
and getting that vengeance, not
Yeah.
justice.
Right.
Remember, that's a very, very important concept to keep in mind. What is vengeance? What is justice?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what happens. Like, well, justice went away.
Yeah.
It's gone now.
Yeah.
And now we have vengeance. And so they're out there, and there's the scene that kind of happens is they're chasing down an atomic-powered supervillain, and he's trying to tell them to stop
Yeah.
because he's unstable.
Yeah.
And they cut him open, and he explodes
Oh, jeez.
and just wrecks like the whole center of America.
Oh, my God.
And like so, but people are just because Magog doesn't have consequences. He's
Yeah.
only wrapped around in his vengeance.
Yeah.
Like the world turns kind of like is like Magog. What is going? You just damaged all this stuff and trying to hold him responsible.
Yeah.
And no one does.
Oh, boy.
He continues on, and so there's a good scene in this comic where Wonder Woman comes by and says Clark because she's talking to Superman.
Yeah.
Superman, Clark Kent,
Yeah.
same guy.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very important to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to oh, Superman is this and Clark Kent is this. Like, no.
No, they're
same
very,
dude.
Yeah, they're still the same dudes.
Same dude, same belief. Like a good scene. Go watch the original Superman movie, the first Donner one.
Yeah.
There's the date with Lois Lane.
Yeah.
You want to see that Superman. He's awkward.
Yeah.
Like he's in his Superman costume.
Yeah.
But he's awkward and weird and kind of like because he's trying to figure it out because that's him.
Well, and he doesn't know how to do human interaction. Like,
Yeah,
he doesn't know how
he's-
to go on a date. He's
Yeah,
an
doesn't-
alien.
Yeah. Well, he's
Well,
been around us for a long time.
But he's never had, like...
But like this is his love interest.
Yeah.
So it's like he's kind of like
Yeah.
a little bit goofy and weird, and it's great because it's like this is Superman.
Yeah.
Whatever. So it's like she comes to him and he's in the Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah.
Keeping to himself.
Yeah.
He's got a replication of like the farm out in Kansas.
Yeah.
And she's like, Clark, we need you.
Yeah.
Like the world needs you. You
Yeah.
need to wake up.
Yeah.
And so he just turns her away.
Yeah.
Tells her to go like leave me alone.
Yeah.
It's like no one wants me around anymore.
Right.
They all look past my ideals.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Right.
And she leaves And when she leaves, they got the scene where he turns on like the computers in the Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah.
And just starts watching the news. You're good. And like he kind of like you don't know what's going to happen. They do a good cut.
Yeah.
And they jump to some of those vigilante vengeance seeker superheroes beating up on a bunch of other villains.
Yeah.
And people are falling to their deaths because remember, collateral damage doesn't matter either.
Yeah.
And Superman just boom appears and starts setting things right.
Yeah.
And that's Kingdom Come.
Okay.
Because it leads into other complicated fragments of what those morals and ethicals kind of things. Because there's like suddenly the world is different.
Yeah.
And it's been led in this very wrong direction by superhero anti-heroes, I guess you could call them, led by Magog and all them.
Yeah.
And villains have kind of like the smarter ones have gone into the background and kind of built up their huge, strong emperors like Lex and all them are still out there.
Yeah.
Superman's not there to keep them in check.
Yeah.
What happens?
Yeah. They build up their empires.
Yeah. So it's like kind of like Kingdom Come drags out to that.
Interesting.
And you get to see this through like a third person, like your point of view is actually a person in the comic.
Okay.
Who is there to judge the actions of Superman and the things that are going on.
Oh, okay.
He's led by another DC superhero, who's lesser known, but he's very, very important, called the Spectre.
Yeah.
And he is like that character is basically God's wrath, his judgment. So he pulls this old man into it, who is well aware of who Clark is.
Yeah.
Understands Superman.
Yeah.
And that old man is us.
Okay.
All right. And the Spectre is kind of like leading him around, like showing him all these events.
Right.
And they have conversations about the morality of things. What is right here? What is wrong? What is going on?
The old man
here?
becomes the jury.
Yeah. And like he becomes like the linchpin of like one of the very most important part of everything.
Interesting.
At the end of the comic book. But you need to like it. That's why Kingdom Come is my favorite because also it's done by Alex Ross. If you guys don't know who Alex Ross is, which probably many of you don't because they don't really talk about him a lot.
Yeah.
Google him.
Yeah.
His artwork is amazing.
Yeah.
Like it looks like paintings. It is so gorgeous.
Interesting.
And that's Kingdom Come, and it is a very small comic, and they've expanded on that universe a little bit.
Right.
But DC has done the smart thing and kind of left it alone as it is, because it is that. Good.
Yeah. Well, and
By
that's the danger with a lot of comics in this day and age that I see is they take something that is actually good and they twist it and mess with it.
And they beat it into the ground where it's not supposed to
and
be.
then people don't buy it and then they wonder why they're having to cancel it.
Bad. You can just buy that one comic, Kingdom Come. It is epic, folks.
So along those lines, what I find fascinating and awesome in comics is a jump off of your theme of Kingdom Come. Is what happens when the world is without our superheroes. And Batman Nightfall is that imagining. So it involves the lead up to the story, and it takes place over a lot. It ends up being Batman being his back being broken by Bane over his knee, like literally.
Folks, that image is on the cover of the book.
Yeah, it's not. There's no spoiler alert there. Batman's neck or back is broken, and so that then becomes the situation where it's a world without Batman, and it goes through like Joker's like what's going to happen now, and so they then have to figure out how to treat him and how to make him like how to save him. But there's a guy who I can't remember his name exactly.
Azrael, the guy who takes
Azrael, and whatever, and so there's a backup suit, and so Robin tries, but Azrael doesn't put on the Batman. He puts on a mechanical suit, and the problem is that.
Yeah, I remember the funky design for that suit. I didn't like it too much. I'm like, this is
I got a
too
kick
weird.
out of it because it was that imagining of what would happen if Batman lost the true Batman, whatever you want to call it. And so Azrael becomes this, towards the end of, there's a big old suit. You can see it here, and it's very like almost like a RoboCop level.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
suit.
I didn't like it because it's like that. I'm like, eh.
But I think it was interesting and important to like draw the comparisons between the classic Batman that we know and his cowl and his cape and all that, and to give us the image of what a vigilante, wrathful Batman would be like. And what I like about that about the Nightfall series is it does force us as boring as not boring, that's the right word. As much as people are like, oh man, Batman, he's just old and tired, blah blah blah. Well, this comic takes the idea, okay, well, cool. Now he's dead, or now he's out of action, and somebody else is going to take over, and it's no longer Bruce Wayne. It's this guy named Azrael, and he is insane.
Yeah.
And he as the series continues, he becomes more and more unstable, and more violent, and more unpredictable. And eventually, Bruce Wayne returns, puts on the bat suit, and is back in action. And Azrael is I think he either dies or he is sidelined somehow.
I think he's still I know he's still alive.
I'm sure.
I think so.
Yeah.
Because last time I was aware of like where that ending point was.
Yeah. So it's. I love it because it reminds us.
I know there's a struggle between him and Bruce about who gets to keep the cow.
Yeah. I like that because it requires our title character to fight for his identity, but also for us to go, well, which do we like? Do we like the old one or the new one? And some people would have probably been like, man, I love this new Batman. But as the implications of what that means begins to unfold, kind of what you're talking about with Kingdom Come, the less of that character that is around and those values, the more broken and destroyed the world becomes, because there's not someone there to fight for the causes that need fighting for. And that, I think, is a brilliant play to kind of play around with in comics, because we then have to say, okay, do we think this is okay? Are we? And it asks the deeper questions of us because it shows us, but it doesn't tell us. And that is what I love about comics and the books I've read over this time, is that it is a deep theological is the wrong word. It's a deep intellectual conversation where you have to examine the character of Batman versus the character of the new Batman.
Yep.
And is this what our future? Is this the future? Is this our future?
Yep.
Do we abandon truth, justice, in the American way? And do we move away from that and new Supermans, or do we stay with the old?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I really love the questions and it's almost philosophical.
Yeah, well, see, that was the take on Kingdom Come, was that whole argument there is like they wanted to wrap it up in a book. And that's why they used Superman as kind of like the highlight of Kingdom Come.
Yeah.
This is him, like, what happens when you give up on those high ideals, those high morals, those things that ethics.
Yeah.
Those things that, I don't want to go into Kant and be like, they're like universal, they never move, they're not flexible. So this is what it is.
Right.
But but it's like those things that you need to aspire to look up to. When you throw those away, then what are you aiming for?
Right.
Everything kind of comes apart then, because who cares?
Right.
Like you can't give in to cynicism, is kind of what it's saying.
Yeah.
And that's usually one of those things, like I have beef with some characters that rely on that too much.
Right.
It's like, ugh. I grew out of that. I have to admit, it's like Spawn, folks, if you want to talk about a cynical world that's dark and gritty and whatever. I went through that phase where I loved Spawn for the longest time.
I could never get myself into that
Really?
because there was no, oh man, the lights again.
Lights. You can keep talking for now, and then we can go turn on the light.
I'll be lost and freaking out.
For those of you that aren't aware, that we like where we record has some automated lights that shut off at like 6 o'clock, and like it just happens sometimes while we're in the middle of recording.
We think we remember, like we're like,
we think we're gonna remember, but then we get into talking, and then we just kind of like, bleh, and then the lights always hit us.
It's lights out. So I think the thing and the danger with the reason why I'm a DC comic versus a DC movie fan is the DC comic world. It allows for some hope. It allows for some light. In the DC movie series, they're like,
they failed.
Oh my god,
it was so dark and gritty. I hate dark and gritty, but dark and gritty.
Well, and they took Superman, the most like brightest, hope-filled character, and they destroyed him.
Yep.
And it was like, why would you?
The thing that you saw in Man of Steel.
Well, not even that, but
empty.
Superman Returns was just, it lacked that soul. It lacked that heart.
Yep.
And it's disappointing, I think, because there's you look at the
thing is, I look at that and I always see that as like, I watch those movies, I watch those things, and I go, I immediately critique the writers because I'm like, you guys don't understand.
You had material from 1930s to today to pull together an amazing story.
You don't understand
and you
the character.
couldn't do it.
Yep.
You couldn't pull it together. You couldn't make a meaningful, well-told, well-structured, well-written movie we would be immersed in that world.
And like you wonder is like we talked about the first Superman movie.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, Richard Donner did his homework.
Yeah.
He got it.
Yep. You watch
and this guy that makes all kinds of schlocky, our 80s action movies and stuff like that. It's like, how did this guy get it? And you modern day guys with all the internet and everything at your disposal,
you
can't
couldn't
grasp
pull it together. Couldn't make it happen. So it's been interesting to kind of sit back and watch the DC film universe kind of shoot itself in the foot several times.
Because now our villains are the good guys. Yay. That's
subvert
the
subvert your expectations is the worst advice any writer has ever been given in the last 10 years.
I mean, look what they did to Luke.
We are not. We must not go into the Star Wars things because I will lose my mind and start pounding on the table angrily.
Yeah. Well, I'll be there with you for once, where I'll be just screaming and angry as well, because that was. Talk about people that didn't understand the assignment.
Right. Clearly didn't read the rubric. Yeah. So I want to jump into something different for a second. And I don't know where I found this. Actually, no, I know where I found this. So Jefferson County Public Library every year does what they call a whale of a used book sale in Denver. And they put together, with COVID, it's been a little off. But there was one year where I went there, and it's literally like an entire football field full of just used books.
Whoa.
It is.
So if they do this again, we're field tripping, right?
Yeah. Yes, that's what I'm saying. And they do it like once or twice a year, and it is everything you can imagine and more. So it's all the books that they either retire or are donated, and you find some amazing things if you get in there.
We'll need a secondary vehicle.
Yeah. We're going to need a dump truck. Transport helicopter. Anyway, so this you can imagine in my head, like, we need Alpha 4. We have another package for out delivery. Let's go. 1. No.
Yeah.
Bring in SEAL Team 6. We need everybody. We got to get
those giant steel shipping containers. We just drop it on the field. I mean, like, load it up.
Just start throwing books in there. Mm-hmm. That's terrifying. So what I have in my hands is I think there's a couple of volumes. I think it's up to volume 3 or 4, but it's called Rocketo. And I'll show you this, and James can confirm this.
I have to admit, I've never seen this one before, but it's got me. I'm curious.
I hadn't either, and you're welcome to borrow volume 1 tonight. But it is the artwork is so. It's not in the absurd, but it's so alternative and different. But it's not quite Picasso, but it's very expressive, and it's almost like someone is painting as you're reading. It's not like block set images like a Superman comic or a Batman, but it's very flowy, and it's almost a little bit absurd, but it's really cool.
Dude, I love the style.
The style is incredible. Like, you look at these mountains, there's almost an influence of, I want to say, Japanese art in here, in how this looks and how it's all kind of put together.
And I love it's not super colorful either, just little bits here and there. That's great.
It has meaning. So it's really cool, and they have like illustrations, and they talk about it. I picked it up it's been a couple years, but these books, they were named, let me find it real quick. They're by Frank Espinoza, the co-writer of Marie Taylor. And it won, if you can believe it, I actually believe it fully, it won the best artist. I gotta find it here. Hold on.
Check the back cover.
Because
usually that's where they put the splash.
3-time Eisner Award nominated book of 2006.
There you go.
So this is really, really cool. You have to look it up. It's Rocketo. Journey to the Hidden Sea is volume 1. Rocketo Journey to the Hidden Sea volume 2. So there may actually be more of this out there, and not just the Journey to the Hidden Sea. This is really interesting to me, and I've read through volume 1 a little bit, but I really, as a language arts teacher who loves meaning, I need to dig into this. But it is fascinating, just the style. And when I pulled it off my shelf, I was like, we got to talk about this. So I'll give you volume 1. You can take that with you.
I'd love to read it.
But it's like, it's just so cool. Like, it's different, and it makes I sit and I look at the different stuff in here and I go, wow, there's so much here. There's so much cool color, and it's so interesting. So it's a lot of fun. I get a kick out of Rocketo. The other one, which I haven't actually read through, and I need to, it's another kind of alternative kind of one. I think I read through a little bit of it, but it's called The Complete Terminal City. And the design is very, you want to say like late 70s, early 80s maybe?
That's what it looks like to me from here.
And it's, you can borrow this as well if you'd like, but it's a whole story. And I think it's from start to finish. It's really kind of a cool story. It's very steampunk-ish sometimes, but it's also very Dick Tracy. And so it's really kind of a fun story of, I can't remember the details, but I remember reading through it and just being like, this is fascinating. So it's called The Complete Terminal City, Dean Motter and Michael Lark. Again, I picked this up. It's an old Jefferson County Library book from that pile. I'm actually going to give that to you so you can read that too this week.
Sure.
But I love finding those random things that I love wandering into like a used bookshop or a used book sale and just finding comic books that are just like, I didn't even know this existed.
Yep.
And I will tell you this, listeners out there, if you're listening, you need to find a used bookshop in your town or in a town next to you. And you need to go because used bookshops will often have a graphic novel or comic section. Mm-hmm. And you will find some things that are either classics that you've remembered from your childhood or things you're just like, what is that? And it can help you get exposed to something that's just absolutely, I don't know what the word is, but absolutely brilliant.
Or mind-blowing. I mean, it's like, whoa, what is this?
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
Like, yeah, I mean, that I'm with you with that. I recommend that too. It's like, get in there.
Yeah.
Look for those things.
Yeah.
Even if you don't find exactly like the whole thing together.
Right.
You find the beginnings, get your foot in that door.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have one you want to talk about for a second?
I can do All-Star Superman if you want.
Yeah, let's talk about All-Star. I have never heard of All-Star Superman.
Okay. All-Star Superman is a story by Grant Morrison.
Okay.
All right. This one is up there with Kingdom Come for me. It's probably like my number one, number two comics. Those are the two. Yeah. They bounce back and forth, whatever. But All-Star Superman is kind of like Grant Morrison was given the ability to tell the story of Superman.
Okay.
But kind of take him out of the regular DC universe and just let him, what could Superman do? All right? And it's wrapped around the story of like Superman is dying. Mm-hmm. All right? But it's okay, how do I put it? It drew its inspiration from the 12 labors of Hercules.
Okay.
So it's tied into that myth in a way.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of like it is the 12 labors of Superman.
Okay.
As he goes through, like, okay, realizing that, oh, I'm dying.
Right. Mortality has come for me.
What do I want? What do I need to do? Mm-hmm. What do I got to do?
Right.
And so, like, he starts, he goes out and he starts doing these fantastic things. Like, he cures children's cancer and things like that. Like, the things that, like, Superman in the DC universe could do.
Right.
But they don't let him really do it because you're going to warp the whole world then,
Right.
But it's like, this is what Superman could do.
Yeah.
Like, this is the things he's going to do. This is the things he cares about.
Yeah.
And in the midst of all this times, you also get these bits of Superman where he stops in the midst of all his labors, knowing he has limited time to stop someone from committing suicide. Huh. And it is an epic little scene there where he talks to this girl and like convinces her, you don't need to jump.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
Like, I'll always be here for you.
Mm.
And it's like he convinces her not to do it.
Wow.
It is an epic story of like, this is where you get like to the core of like what Superman, why he's like the greatest superhero ever.
Right.
Like that book, it's all wrapped into that book.
Yeah.
And Grant Morrison puts this, because people always talk about how it's like, oh, he's impossible. It's like, no, read this comic book. Mm-hmm. This comic book will help you understand Superman and why he's so important. Because even at the end of this thing, even at the end of his days where he knows he's dying and he's had Lex Luthor try to kill him, he gets to Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
Because Superman in the end believes in all of us. Yeah. And it's kind of like, that's the thing that kind of like wrapped in Superman 2. It's like, even if you're the person that hates him the most.
Yeah. He still believes in you.
He still believes in you.
Yeah.
He believes in your potential to do good. Mm-hmm. And that's the last confrontation in that book is him and Lex.
Yeah.
And it takes place in kind of like a thing where it's like, they switch positions. Mm-hmm. Superman kind of like gives Lex all his powers.
Oh, geez.
And then forces Lex to see the world through his eyes.
Interesting.
And it is an interesting concept because, like, at the time they think he's dead.
Yeah.
And then Superman gives up paradise.
Yeah.
He's in paradise.
Okay.
And he decides to come back because his labors aren't done. This is his final labor, is him convincing Lex
Hence the Hercules. Fine. Okay.
Yeah, this is like it's tied into there or whatever, but it's like, it's very, very different. And it's one of those comic books with Kingdom Come where I'm like, read both of these.
Yeah. Almost like foundational, important stuff that helps you understand Superman.
Yeah.
So I will actually bring in something on to that. So there's a collection. It's a graphic novel collection, and it's called World's Finest. I don't have it. It's a student actually has it right now, but it's a story told over 7 years between Batman and Superman. And it starts with an incident involving someone in there, like a person in Gotham or whatever, and the guy ends up dying. And the next 7 years that are told is Batman and Superman having philosophical and almost spiritual and even like theological discussions over that event and what happened. And so every 7 years they find themselves back together again somehow, either at the guy's gravesite or something between their two cities draws them back together. But the cool thing is you get to see Batman in Metropolis. And it is fantastic. It is like he's such a fish out of water because he's so dark and so foreboding.
Yeah.
And, Metropolis, it's not that place. And then you get to see Superman in Metropolis. And it's such a dichotomy.
Oh, Superman in Gotham City.
Yeah, Superman in Gotham City. And it's such a dichotomy because it's like, that's Batman's world. It's the brooding. It's the dark. It's the insidious.
Yeah.
And then you have Superman going, hey, I'm here to help. And Batman's just like, dude, stop
Actually,
it.
Remember the animated series?
Yeah.
Where Batman is like, something happened to him. I forget what exactly.
Yeah.
But they needed someone to like take over, watching over Gotham.
Yeah.
And Superman dons Batman's outfit.
interesting.
You didn't see this?
Oh, I must
It's
have
in the
missed
original animated series.
I'll
It is
check it out.
fantastic because
Okay.
it's hilarious. Because like to don Batman's uniform, you kind of need to be Batman-ish, right?
Yeah.
So
Superman
you have
is not that at all.
Superman is not Batman. Like Batman, like, he dodges everything, and all that. Superman can tank anything. So you have this scenes where it's like, like they throw like a table at him, and he just stands there and hits it. And you have Robin in the background and goes, you need to dodge.
Sorry, that's just so funny to me.
Because like Superman is like Superman.
So he doesn't see the
and like
danger.
Bane comes up and just swaps him and like thinks he's gonna level him.
Yeah.
And he just kind of like, what was that? And you have the bad guys going like, he can't do that, right? Like they're not understanding like what's happening here.
Yeah, the world is upside
like,
down.
Batman is just like laughing at their efforts.
Right. You've broken the rules of engagement, sir.
Okay, he's not really laughing because he's Superman. Superman doesn't laugh at people.
Right.
But he's still trying to stop them.
Right.
And he does because he's Superman.
Right.
But it was one of those things where it's just like, Batman's bad guys don't understand.
Yeah, they're two different worlds, Metropolis and Gotham, and I think I love that I think it's intentional, obviously, because Superman is the bright truth, justice, American way. Batman is.
Well, I mean, it's even great in the comics when they do paint those two cities.
And that's in the World's Finest, that happens where they trade cities or they end up in the other city, and it's very interesting because that comic series explores Batman and Superman's relationship. Because in the DC world, that relationship is equal parts strained, but equal parts strong.
Yep.
Because Batman operates in a whole different kind of mode than Superman. And Superman
he's more cynical.
And more violent.
Yeah,
where
more
Superman's
violent.
just like, why do you have to do that? And Batman's like, this is my world. This is what I have to do to save my city. And Superman's like, well, you know what? And he's like, you don't get it. I don't have powers. I just have me. That's all I got. And so and it's fascinating to watch that conversation throughout the book as it goes throughout the 7 years. And it's really cool to watch where they start and where they end up at the end, because it is, I don't want to overstate this too much, but it is a beautiful plot arc between the two of them and how they wrestle through the comic. They wrestle through this every year till they get to that 7 year point, and it ends in not a like rainbows and unicorns way,
No.
but it ends in just a way where you're just like, that is exactly how that should go.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a brilliant series, a brilliant book. It's called The World's Finest. And it is an exploration of Batman and Superman's dueling identities, because you have Clark Kent and you have Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is a playboy. He is a guy who goes out and dates.
He's a billionaire.
Right, billionaire. Clark Kent is, the humble little guy from the farm, and I'm so nice.
You say that mockingly when you shouldn't.
Right. No, because but that's Clark Kent. He is that. Oh, well, he's a good little guy. And then you have Bruce Wayne, who is a player, and so even their alternate
You hear
identities.
his voice and how he looks up to the player.
Yeah.
He wants to be the player versus be the good man.
Right. But there is that clash of not just their alter egos are opposite from each other, but they're superhero. So it's a double layer of identity kind of things. I really get a kick out of it. So that's my.
Well, I mean, there's I forget which comic book I read it in, but there was one where it's like the trio, which is what they call them all the time. It's like Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Trinity.
The Trinity.
I have a Trinity on my shelf. It's exploration of their story as a three.
But yeah, they call them that, but I forget what comic book it is. I can't remember off the top of my head. But it's like there's a moment where they're meeting for lunch.
Yeah.
Diana Prince, that's Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And Bruce Wayne are there on time.
Yeah.
And they're waiting for Superman.
Yeah.
And Bruce is getting angry because Clark should be here, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And Wonder Woman, she's like telling him, is like, no, you know Clark.
Yeah.
He's not being late
Right.
for no reason.
Right. There's a reason.
There's a reason for what he's doing. And then in those cuts, because when they're talking like that or whatever, they're jumping over to Superman. And it's showing like all this stuff he's doing in the time frame.
Yeah.
Where it's like he's stopping this thing.
Right.
He's taking time to stop to talk to a small child.
Yeah.
He's taking time to speak to other people.
Yeah.
And like this is like emphasizing like this is the nature of Superman.
Right.
He
but
is
also Clark Kent. They are
Clark Kent.
They are enmeshed. They can't.
You can't separate the two.
Right.
'Cause
they're just
Clark Kent is the heart of Superman.
Yeah. I like how you said that. That's really, and it's true, because that Clark Kent's childhood and growing up in the Kent household.
Mom and Pa Kent
Yeah.
were like the greatest parents.
Well, and they raised a child to understand the values of his powers, and they learned as they went. And so it's interesting if you I mean, there's probably been dissertations written on how Superman became the man he was from the child he was through the family that he was raised. But it's also fascinating because you can draw the comparisons. Clark Kent grew up in a functional family.
Yep.
Bruce Wayne lost him at like 7 years old, 13 years old, whatever the age was.
Dead in the gutter.
And so he went through life without that. And so when you compare the two and you look at Clark Kent and how he can't be pulled out of Superman, the same is true of Batman. The Bruce Wayne, the heartbreak and the sorrow and the suffering and the darkness and all of that, you can't pull him out of Batman.
Yeah.
Because that informs on why Batman does what he does and the justice he dispenses and the reason why he looks over his city, because he doesn't want another child to lose another parent. And that's a powerful thing. But then you look at Superman and why he does. And so that's why I love
Superman does the same thing.
But for different reasons.
Yeah, with all that hope.
Right,
built
because
into it.
I know what it's like to have my parents or to have grandparents, and I want everyone to have that. And again, not to try and like hyperbole it too much, but you take that and then you step over into the DC universe and you go, what in the wide world of sports were you thinking?
Oh,
like
those movies?
Like
Yeah,
where did you you had it? It was gift wrapped. It was a perfect like omelet ready for you to put on the plate and deliver. And
take this.
What did you do?
Here's this magical story.
You did the worst thing you could have done, which Justice League.
I mean, I'll admit, it's like Henry Cavill.
Yeah,
that's a good Superman, but you failed him with the story.
Oh, he was written horrifyingly, and I think a lot of our discussions in the nerd world will center around writing going forward. I don't want to blame Jodie Whittaker for Doctor Who. I want to blame the writers, because the writers are what power that show. Any show, any movie. The writers are what decide and determine what the character's going to do.
I mean, there's also that director that kind of gets his input in there, but it's also like it originates. The issues really originate in the writer's room,
and you gotta have strong writing.
Yeah.
Okay, we are hitting a 57-minute mark.
Really?
I know.
It doesn't even feel that late.
It's bad. We've been at it a bit. So I'm going to just kind of quickly rattle off. So be prepared to rattle off just some random.
I can rattle off some. I got some other ones. Do you want me to jump into them real quick?
Yeah, go with a few more.
Another good story that everybody should probably go read is The Watchmen. by Alan Moore.
Yes.
Well, just Watchmen, not The Watchmen. That's another comic book. Watchmen
Okay.
by Alan Moore. It made it into a movie and everything, but the movie is okay for what it is.
No,
They kind of
it's not.
failed at that
It's
end.
terrible. Don't watch it.
No, you
Read-
watch it. Watch it.
We'll disagree.
Never say no.
I will
Only
always.
Sith deal in absolutes, sir.
Well, then I'm crossing over into Sith and
Like, you can still watch it. It's okay. Like, it misses a lot of important beats from the comic book.
Yeah.
And it's missing some context clues, like the whole story of the ship and the pirates and stuff.
Yeah.
That's in the comic book that you really kind of need to grasp everything it's tackling.
Yep.
But what you could cram into a movie, they did all right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they didn't miss completely everything. It's just, you're not going to do the alien thing, or, you know. But yeah, go read Watchmen.
Go with the comic first. I'll go with my next one. So this is something again I found at the used bookstore sale. It's all-star western, and it's a story set in the western times of Gotham, and it involves Jonah Hex. And I've got books 1 through 5. I have yet to get into it and read it. It's been sitting on my shelf for about a year and a half. My goal is over Christmas break is to dig into this. But all-star western, it's 5 volumes, and it's set in the old West Gotham. And there are definitely some implications and some pieces that are like heroes that are connected to modern day. One you should always, in addition to the death of Superman, is Batman: A Death in the Family.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
That is it's a terrible but great story. What else you got?
Another one. Batman: The Killing Joke.
Yes.
I'm surprised you didn't have that in your pile.
It might be over there. I do. It is on my list of things I need to.
I'm like, wow. As the Batman man, it's like, where's The Killing Joke, man? That should be there.
Sometimes I'm not as.
That is an amazing story, folks. You should watch that too. I mean, that's good. Good filler. That's where you get the one thing where it's like one bad wood day that people say a lot.
Right.
That's where that comes from.
Yeah.
But the comic does it better than anybody else.
So there's also 2 guys that if you have a chance to pick up their books, their Batman books, Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. They're two that I really love is The Long Halloween and Dark Victory. And it's just the artistry work that they did is just second to none. And they are Eisner Award-winning creators in the DC universe, and they have made some incredible stories and incredible art. Graphic novels that you should probably check out if you have the intuition, if you have the time or the finances. Shirley Jackson's The Lottery, the authorized graphic novel adaptation. That story is fun to read with middle schoolers and high schoolers, but this graphic novel is brilliant because it takes all the subtlety of the book and really just kind of it weaves it in there. It's by Miles Hyman, and it's pretty fantastic. To Kill a Mockingbird also actually has a graphic novel as well.
What?
Yeah, I know. Believe it or not. I haven't read through it, so I can't say whether or not I like it. What I have, pieces I've looked at and glanced at, I have enjoyed. The thing about Mockingbird is it's incredibly complex at points, and I feel like
people read that book too much and just surface suck it in.
Yeah,
It's like, no, you need to really pull that apart.
There's some depth to it.
Yeah.
What else you got?
I got Sin City, Frank Miller.
Yes.
Sin City is a good one.
Yep.
Like, go read that one. Like, there's a bunch of different stories that all take place.
Did I see Sandman on there as well?
I do have Sandman. I was going to get to that one next.
That is an incredible series. I have the first book. When we were doing our Myth and Legends class at Metro State, we were required to buy the first in the Sandman series, and it's in my classroom here somewhere. I have no idea where it went.
I recommend, Sandman by Neil Gaiman is amazing, folks.
Magic.
The whole series. And I recommend his just regular books.
Yeah.
As a reader, go read his books. Like, they are amazing. He can do adult stuff, but he can also capture that child sense of wonder.
Didn't he do Coraline?
Yes.
Yeah, Coraline is an exceptional book, but also an exceptional movie.
Yep.
It is a movie that will actually make you uncomfortable. And in not like weird, but it's just like, oh my gosh, this is you get stressed. And I love how that movie just pushes your buttons gently and you're just like, I don't like it.
Yeah, Neil Gaiman is an amazing storyteller.
He's legit. My last one is Frank Miller's Batman: The Dark Knight Returns.
I can mark that off because I have that in there too.
Klaus Janson and Lynn Yarley. It is the artistry work in there is pretty amazing. Superman does make an appearance in this.
That's probably my big beef with that one. Is kind of like, I get you're using him as a foil for your story, but you kind of miss Superman too.
Yeah.
You kind of messed up the character there.
Yeah. So it's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of good times. The only other thing is, and I only have book 1 and book 2, but our Worlds at War, it's a Superman series, and it basically has everybody is at war trying to save the universe, and it's an exceptional series. It almost feels like Superman, the death of Superman, but definitely much more far-reaching in the universe effect that it has. I haven't gotten the other volumes because, again, time and effort and money is hard sometimes. But those are my selections.
I got more. I can rattle off at
what you got?
A Superman for All Seasons by Jeff Loeb. That's another amazing one where they go through the 4 seasons, and each one of them is kind of like through a point of view from a different character.
Okay.
All of them looking at and interacting with Superman.
Interesting.
So he's kind of like a side character, but it is about him because I think it's like you go through his dad, you go through Lex Luthor, you go through some others as well.
Okay.
And that's a pretty good one. Superman Red Sun by Mark Millar, which is what happens if Superman lands in Russia.
Oh, jeez.
Instead of the United States.
United States. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
That one is an amazing story.
Okay.
Go read it. It's not what you think it is. It's not as bad as you think it is either.
Right.
But that one's a good story too. It's
Interesting.
a good turn that tail around and go
put
for
that
it.
on my list.
V for Vendetta, Alan Moore.
Yep.
That's an amazing story as well.
Not the best movie, but whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can both agree on that one.
Yeah.
That's it's not the best movie. Much like Watchmen, not the best movie, but does okay with what you got, because you just can't cram all that into that short frame.
Meh.
See, and normally I'm the cynical one, folks. So if I'm talking it up, it's not that bad.
Your mileage may vary.
The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen by Alan Moore.
Yes.
Which takes a bunch of Victorian age book figures.
And then they made a movie, and it was
that one is absolute garbage.
I love the campiness of it, but I agree. It does no favors to any of those literary figures. It is almost an insult to every single one of them.
Yeah.
And it ends with Quartermain coming back to life for a sequel that no one ever wanted. And no one, it was just...
I love... they poured a lot into making it look beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no. Cinema shot-wise.
Cinematography on it was just... Woo.
Yeah. But, story-wise...
that was...
no.
That one should have, definitely they should have just poured the money into it and did a Lord of the Rings kind of thing, because then I think you could have dragged it out.
Yeah.
Where it's okay, here's our 3 movies that make the whole story.
Yeah, it could have actually
and gives
been,
it time to breathe.
Right. It could have been a cool universe.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's like Tom Cruise tried to start the monster universe with the Mummy.
The Mummy, which is, I got some other long format things if you guys want to read them. I'll always recommend Chris Claremont's run on the Uncanny X-Men.
Okay.
And I talked about it earlier, but you can find the chunks of it to read all that.
Okay.
Out there.
Okay.
There's even a documentary about his run on comics, and it's on Amazon, folks. That documentary, it's just about him and his run on how much he turned the superhero world on its end by doing what he did to the X-Men.
Okay, you got a minute.
You got Marvel, The Age of Apocalypse, that whole series.
Yep.
That is amazing.
Okay.
Go read that.
Okay.
And the other one is going to be Spider-Man. Superior Spider-Man.
Okay.
Which is a brain swap story.
Okay.
Where Doc Ock takes over Peter Parker's body.
No.
And it is, what happens is he takes over the body.
Yeah.
I'm going on for a little longer here, but I want to explain the story, okay?
He
takes over Peter's body, but he is driven by bits of Peter that's still left inside of his head.
Oh, interesting.
So what happens is you take Doc Ock, all his knowledge and everything else, and you kind of put Peter's drive to do good behind it.
Yeah.
And he suddenly, Spider-Man becomes really, really good at his job. Huh. He becomes more brutal because Doc Ock also starts to realize oh my God,
right?
Spider-Man's been pulling his punches on all of us the whole time.
He hasn't been using his full strength.
And he starts using all its the science knowledge he's got to build spider bots to help him monitor the city and all kinds. It is like Spider-Man. Peter Parker could do this stuff too, but he doesn't do that.
Right.
So they use that excuse to drive this story of having Doc Ock in that body.
Huh.
To drive the story of Spider-Man, and it's an amazing arc.
The power of comics is you can have a statement and Doc Ock possesses Peter Parker's body.
Yeah.
And it works. It functions.
Yeah, and there's some amazing stuff in there, interactions with his villain categories and stuff like that, because Doc Ock don't take none from anybody.
No, he's his own. He's his own bad guy. He doesn't want to play with it. He doesn't play well in anyone's other sandbox.
Yeah, and then unfortunately, I don't have many like one-shot Marvel comics to recommend to you guys because they just don't do them that well.
Yeah.
Oh, one that I'd say from Image Comics that everybody should go read is Giant Brick, and they're going to release more of them. It's called Saga.
Okay.
Go read that.
Okay. We'll put it on
It's
the list.
amazing.
Put it on the list. All right. Well, I hope that you as listeners have gotten an education on the past, the present, and maybe the future of comics.
I mean, we'll probably do some deeper dives in some of these things.
I think
here
so.
and
I think there is some actual like tomes and collections out there that would be worthy of a digger.
Like I said, this is just kind of like our breath moment, folks, because we did a lot of research on those Ghostbusters things.
Yeah.
And you didn't get to hear all of that, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
it's one of those things like we are trying to keep it small, but we get into it and we're enjoying these conversations.
It's a lot of fun. This is the power of the nerd of the nerd herd or whatever you want to call it. But people love to talk about stuff that brings them joy. We love that, and that's important. If you're out there and you're in Morgan County or you're in a county outside of Morgan, please continue to come show up with us, hang out with us on Saturday mornings at 6 a.m. when this goes live. We have a lot more episodes to come. We have a lot more stuff to talk about. We have Star Trek. We have a lot of things still to be done. If you have ideas about what you want us to talk about, you know what you should do. You should email me, adelayedteacher@gmail.com, because we would love, myself and James would love to hear from you. And if you have a thing, if you're like, hey, there's this comic thing that you probably have never heard of and you need to go check it out, and I want to hear what you think. Awesome sauce. I'll go check it out. James, go check it out. And we'll be like,
and we'll
hey,
talk about it.
Oh my gosh, this is something new.
If you have a movie or something you want us to go watch that falls with a nerdy kind of topic thing, we'll gladly go watch it and take it apart. I mean, we had to spend money to watch those Ghostbusters movies, especially those 2 train wreck ones.
One of them was a train wreck. The other one was a half train wreck.
Yeah.
And on that bombshell of a note, my name is Aaron.
And I'm James.
And this has been Nerds by Screenlight. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and
have a good one, folks.
Until then, hit the off button. You've been listening to the Nerds by Screenlight podcast, presented by Create at Morgan Productions, located in Fort Morgan, Colorado, USA. For more information on our production house, other podcasts hosted here, and further details, please visit www.createatmorgan.org. You can find us on Twitter at the handle CreateAtMorgan. Create at Morgan is a school club at Lincoln High School, our alternative education campus in Morgan County. Our sponsor is Aaron DeLay, a language arts teacher at Lincoln. Send any feedback to adelayedteacher@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to our podcast.